There's a lot going on in Greater Manchester at the moment, so I'll try and provide a very quick snapshot of what's going on. I think there's really exciting times at the moment for us in terms of the city region, and they present real opportunities for us to collaborate, but also apply natural capital thinking and concepts within a motivated city region. And as part of that, the Mayor, Andy Burnham, has set this vision about transforming Greater Manchester into a world-leading greener, cleaner city region. And that provides a unique opportunity to protect and enhance the environmental quality and resilience of the conurbation. And with that in mind, we have a mayoral green summit, which he set as a commitment within his manifesto within 12 months of being in office. And I'll come on to more about that in a minute. But effectively, one of the key things that we're delivering in Greater Manchester is Greater Manchester is designated as one of 4 pioneer areas in the country, which is testing the principles of the DEFRA 25-year environment plan, which was launched at the start of the year. And obviously the ask of each of the pioneers is to find better ways of working within the current resource we have available, using a natural capital approach as a basis for this. So there's no extra money. It's how do we actually deliver natural capital approaches within the existing resources that we have. And to support this, the Urban Pioneer has 4 key objectives and 1 cross-cutting objective. So that's around developing the evidence base, demonstrating a place-based approach to delivery that improves policy and decision-making, creating a natural capital investment plan, developing a demonstrator project that shows benefit of natural capital approach in its project funding, so it's previously an unfunded project, and developing and testing a communication and engagement model. So in practice, what does this mean? Well, effectively, we're not short of evidence in Greater Manchester. We've had a lot of studies over the years, whether that's ecosystem services pinch points, whether that's the DEFRA local action project, whether that's various different biodiversity assessments. So the benefits of our natural capital are well evidenced. And at the moment, what we're undertaking is a natural capital tool that's being developed as part of the Natural Course project, which actually will map out the opportunities in a river catchment areas that we can actually identify where there are most benefits in terms of natural capital, but also the value of those natural capital in terms of the services they provide. But obviously in terms of all this, and obviously to start delivering interventions for policy makers, for decision makers, for project developers, we obviously need to communicate these findings in a way that actually starts making sense from their perspective. So it's about how do we actually transfer all those benefits into something meaningful in terms of a financial value that can start opening doors in terms of levering investment and actually talking to those kind of beneficiaries that actually are benefiting from those services. And obviously we need the right evidence and information to support that. One of the key things that we are preparing at the moment is the Greater Manchester Spatial Framework, which is being produced by all 10 local authorities, working in partnership together to ensure that we have the right land available in the right places to deliver for future growth up to 2035. The second draft of this plan is currently being developed, and we're looking to publish this in June 2018. Now, as part of that development, obviously there's a separate team that are the policy team developing the policies for the GMSF, but also as part of that, working with the likes of the Local Nature Partnership, which is the Greater Manchester Natural Capital Group, but also the Ecology Unit, Natural England, Environment Agency, to actually carry out a series of evidence-based tasks for integrating as part of the plan. So you'll see these areas in green here in terms of the kind of environment areas that we're actually looking at. But some of those specific pieces of work are around identifying opportunity sites based on natural capital and ecosystem services assessments, updating targets for our natural environment, particularly the identification of strategic opportunity areas for green infrastructure enhancement, detailed modelling of species, movement patterns across wetland areas to identify wildlife corridors and stepping stones, but also detailed appraisals of some of the larger Greater Manchester Spatial Framework strategic sites that have been put forward to actually assess their potential to achieve the enhancement of biodiversity and natural capital. So that's work that's going on at the moment, and also trying to kind of embed net gain policies and policy implementation, working with Natural England to actually look to develop a net gain policy across Greater Manchester. Now, some of you may have seen the illustration on the left, which is a popular way of illustrating in terms of how we're approaching going from a net loss approach to a no net loss, and obviously to a net gain approach. And obviously, there's lots of work already out there in terms of looking at biodiversity net gain, but obviously the DEFRA 25-year plan is looking to go that step further in terms of developing and expanding to a net gain approach, used not only just for biodiversity, but for including the wider natural environment, such as flood protection, recreation, improved water and air quality. So in this context, Natural England are developing an extension to the existing DEFRA biodiversity metric. And at the moment, they are developing that metric, and I know that Oxford University is currently assessing the feasibility of developing a pilot tool for testing in 2018 and 19. But in addition to that, we've got various different organisations, including a private developer, that are actually developing their own tool because they understand the value of incorporating and embedding a natural capital approach within their own service delivery, particularly in terms of embedding that at the front of their planning stage, so they can actually incorporate that within the decision-making process, where they'll see a more kind of quicker response, less protracted negotiations in terms of taking forward their planning applications. And also, just to illustrate that in terms of demonstrating a place-based approach, working with the likes of the Land Trust, who've carried out recent evidence to actually show the economic value of green spaces, particularly in terms of the direct economic benefits as a result of creating a park. And this is an example from a report that's been commissioned from Alliance Manchester Business School, using evidence from the creation in 2013 of Port Sunlight River Park in the Wirral, Merseyside. And through that has identified a range of benefits, in particular adding £7.8 million to houses within a 500-metre radius of the park, which is an average of £8,670,004 for each property. So there's significant benefits in terms of close proximity to green spaces and maximising our natural evidence, our natural environment. So in terms of actually kind of looking at how we actually lever this investment, obviously one of the key things we're looking at is developing a natural capital investment plan. So that's building on work that's going on at the moment in developing a natural capital account for Greater Manchester, and actually taking that next step forward in terms of identifying priority areas that we should look at in terms of investing in terms of our natural environment, particularly those areas that are most risk in terms of pressures, not only from development, but also in terms of pollution, climate change. So a key area that the work we're going to be looking at is moving from this bit here in terms of the foundations. We've got a lot of evidence to actually around the specific interventions and the specific investment actions. So that's a piece of work that we're going to be looking at commissioning fairly shortly. But building on progress. So the Urban Pioneer is not about also, it's not just about, what we're doing in Greater Manchester in terms of best practice, but drawing best practice from elsewhere. So, Surrey Nature Partnership have done a lot of really good work around the natural capital agenda and have just published their own natural capital investment plan, but also the Northern Uplands chain as well. So building on the practice from elsewhere. But we're also looking at developing demonstrator projects, those projects that are previously unfunded, where we can actually lever in investment through demonstrating a natural capital approach. So on the left, we have the Northern Forest, which has been identified in the 25-year environment plan, which has some funding to help plant additional trees, but obviously there's a significant gap there in terms of funding. So how do we actually fund, and particularly through projects such as City of Trees here on the left, which is looking to plant 1,000 SUDS-enabled street trees in the centre of Manchester. How do we actually fund those? And how do we build those models, those funding models, to actually help deliver those street trees by understanding the benefits that they provide to business, to society, and the wider good? But also in terms of looking at businesses. So this is a project through Business in the Community that are developing water-resilient cities, but looking at a SUDS-enabled scheme that actually is totally financed through the water rates, and actually looking at lowering the water rate band through investment in green infrastructure and SUDS in schools. And that will actually pay back the investment that they've put together in terms of delivering the SUDS over time through the lower water rates. So lastly, I think one of the key things really is about communication. And we have the Mayor's Green Summit, which is kind of basically looking at Andy Burnham's ambitions for making Greater Manchester one of the leading green cities in Europe. And to realise these ambitions, he's called for the Green Summit, which is being held on the 21st of March. Now, in terms of this, there's a whole raft of consultation that's gone on. So we've had expert workshops looking at the scatter model that's BEIS have funded in terms of looking at our carbon trajectory. But it's not just about carbon, it's about the wider agenda in terms of, our natural environment, our green spaces, the health and well-being of society. So we've had a series of listening events. The Green Summit has proved a lot more interest than we originally anticipated. We were planning 6 listening events, we've had 50. And they've all been sold out, which with a capacity of around 60 to 70 people. So there's a real genuine appetite in Greater Manchester to take forward the Mayor's Green ambition. And the Green Summit on the 21st of March, we had over 1,000 applications for that in terms of leaders across Greater Manchester, and we've got 400 places. But ultimately, from the Green Summit, we will be developing an environment charter. And just lastly, just to comment on, again, what we need to make sure is that people actually use the environment, understand the value of that. So we are developing, at the moment, Natural Capital Group have got a new website which actually tells people, where they can go and discover their natural environment. They don't need to go up to the Lake District or the Peak District. There actually is sufficient green spaces around in the local area for people to go to. But also using citizen science, so the University of Manchester developing the My Backyard project, where people can understand the biodiversity aspects of their own back gardens, what they can do to improve it. So lastly, my last slide really is just a call in terms of how do we inspire a generation and provide them with the hope for the future. How do we actually partner and collaborate with citizens, businesses and academia to actually accelerate progress? And that's my last comment. So thank you very much.